Hello, and welcome to the first installment of Fellowship Fridays. I'm your host, Annie Janney, and it is at this time that I have decided to take the opportunity to do a Bible study on the book The Pilgrim's Progress Study Guide, written by Alan Vermeil. This is the book summary. John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress was first published in 1678. And is second only to the Bible in the number of copies sold, having never been out of print. Written almost 350 years ago, Bunyan created the most famous allegory in all of English literature while imprisoned in the Bedford County Jail. Charles Spurgeon, known as Prince of Preachers, loved this book and said, "Next to the Bible, the book I value most is John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. I believe I have read it through at least 100 times. It is a volume of which I never seem to tire, and the secret of its freshness is that it is so largely compiled from the Scriptures." The Pilgrim's Progress is considered one of the first novels ever written and was standard in most 19th century households, being read alongside the Bible. Bunyan chose an allegorical narrative to tell his powerful presentation of what it means to follow the narrow way of Christian salvation so that the lowest classes in English society would be able to understand it. The Pilgrim's Progress is told from the narrator's perspective, as if he were in a dream. In this dream, he tells the story of a Christian, a man who lives in the city of destruction. One day, Christian is awakened to the realities of sin and judgment on his life, symbolized by a heavy burden that he carries on his back. He encounters a spiritual guide named Evangelist who sets him on a path to salvation. He must first travel to the wicket gate and then on to the celestial city. Unable to convince his family and friends to travel with him, Christian sets out on his own. Shortly after leaving, he encounters Mr. Worldly Wiseman, who leads him astray by convincing him to take the easier route that almost leads to his destruction at the village of morality. Once he arrives at the wicket gate, he is permitted entrance, setting him on his real journey on a path referred to as the Way. Next, he arrives at the interpreter's house, where he visits many rooms and learns lessons about his newfound faith. Once enlightened, he continues traveling to the cross and tomb, where he understands the sacrifice that Christ made for his sins. The burden rolls off his back and into the tomb. Angels arrive and provide him with new clothes to wear along the way, and a certificate that he must provide for entrance into the celestial gate. At the foot of the hill of difficulty, he encounters formalism and hypocrisy, who had climbed over the gate to get on the way, but were eventually destroyed when they would not follow the narrow path. Christian stays on the path and eventually comes upon a shadow harbor where he falls asleep, loses his scroll, and later must retrace his steps to find it. He next arrives at the Palace Beautiful, at the top of the hill, and is admitted in by a group of 4 sisters. They examine his conscience and provide him with shelter and supplies for the journey, including a suit of armor. As he travels down the hill into the Valley of Humiliation, he battles and defeats a notorious monster named Apollyon, who tries to kill him. He then proceeds through the dark desert-like valley of the shadow of death, which is haunted by demons, before catching up with his old friend Faithful, and they exchange stories of their journey. They are soon joined once again by Evangelist, who warns them about the wicked town of Vanity Fair, which they will soon enter. The town hosts a year-round carnival designed to tempt pilgrims to abandon their journey. Upon arrival, they are mocked by the townspeople for their backward way of thinking and arrested under the false charge of inciting a riot. Faithful is tried, tortured, and burnt at the stake. Christian miraculously escapes and is joined by Hopeful, a recent convert from Vanity Fair, and they continue their journey together. On the way, they cross paths with Bunyan and his friends and discuss whether it's wrong to use religion as a means to get ahead in the world. Christian and Hopeful reject Bunyan and his company and enter the Plain of Ease, where they are tempted by a smooth talker named Lucre to come over and look at a silver mine. They do not succumb to this temptation, but pass him by. Next, they arrive at the River of God and experience some rest and relaxation. When they leave the comforts of the river, however, the road soon becomes rocky and hard, so they opt for an easier, smoother path over the fence. This bad decision leads them to getting lost and trapped in a storm and eventually captured by Giant Despair. The giant imprisons them in Doughty Castle and tortures and starves them while also encouraging them to commit suicide. Christian and Hopeful manages to escape when Christian remembers that he possesses the key of promise, which can unlock any door in the castle. The two pilgrims continue on their journey until they reach the Delectable Mountains, where they are met by a group of shepherds and are shown a variety of wonders. The shepherds provide them with a map to avoid traps along the way and warn them to avoid the flattery. Now, in their final stretch to the celestial city, they encounter a young man named Ignorance, who entered the path by a shortcut and not by the wicket gate. They engage in conversation with him about whether living a good life is sufficient to prove one's faith. Ignorance is unable to handle Christian's rebuke and leaves their company. Eventually, they come to a fork in the road, and instead of reading the map the shepherds had provided, they take the wrong path, and they are ensnared in flattery. They are rescued by an angel who punishes them for not heeding the warnings of the shepherds. They manage to get back on the way and then enter the enchanted ground, where they are warned not to fall asleep. To stay awake and alert, they discuss Hopeful's journey to becoming a Christian. Next, they encounter Atheist, who denies the celestial city exists, claiming to have been searching for it for a long time. Christian and Hopeful avoid his trap and once again cross paths with Ignorance, whom they earnestly try to help without success, as Ignorance grows frustrated and leaves again. As Christian and Hopeful approach the land of Bala, which borders the celestial city, they are refreshed again for the remaining journey ahead. To reach the city, they must first cross the river Death, which is to die. The deep river changes to reflect the doubt or faith of the person who enters it. At first, Christian is overwhelmed by doubt and nearly drowns, but hopeful reminds him of Christ's love. Reminded and revived, they both now have the confidence to cross over and are met by angels who escort them the rest of the way. At last they arrive at the gates of the celestial city and are surrounded by a choir of angels with trumpet fanfares. They provide their certificates to the king and are transfigured as they enter the city and are welcomed by the joyous celebration of residents. The story ends with Ignorance arriving at the gate, but because he doesn't have a certificate to provide to the king, he is bound and taken to hell. With the pilgrim's progress to heaven now complete, the author awakes from his dream. And this is the background of the book that I'm reading for this Bible study. Again, the name of the book is The Pilgrim's Progress, written by John Bunyan, and there is audio links to the book in the description and a link to the YouTube movie on YouTube that's free with ads. So as we begin to embark on this Bible study, enjoy the audio book, enjoy the movie, and in the next installment of the Bible study, I'm going to introduce all the characters in the chapter to you. So join me next Friday and every Friday for Fellowship Fridays.